Hey class, in this video we are going to be focusing on the bones and bony markings of the pelvic girdle and the lower limb. So let's dive into it. First, as we look at our pelvic girdle, I want to emphasize that you need to be able to distinguish between male and female pelvic girdle. Every A&P teacher in the world asks their students to be able to do that. So please be able to differentiate those. And invisible body, I'll go ahead and flip over here. I have it pulled up. We have Anatomy Atlas. I'm going to go ahead and clean up our view a little bit here, like I do for all of our videos. So let's get rid of all those ligaments, because ligaments are messy. I just want the bones. Okay, so we have our bones. I'm going to click on the little spinning wheel up here, settings. And here we can change the sex of the model. So we can alternate between male and female. Right now we currently have a male model. And before we dive into that, I want to get rid of our axial skeleton. So I clicked on our vertebra. And then I'm just working up through our breadcrumbs right here, axial skeleton. Let's hide the axial skeleton. So we're going to focus on the appendicular skeleton only. Actually, I take that back. I am going to unhide the axial skeleton. I want to keep the coccyx in place there. And of course, now we have those ligaments back. There we go. So right here we have a male pelvic girdle, and we can tell it's a male pelvic girdle a couple ways. First, as we look at this, I want to emphasize that there is a narrow angle for the pubic arch. So as we look at the pubic arch, this angle is 90 degrees or less. Another way that we can tell that this is, and actually I'm going to go ahead and let's differentiate this a little bit better here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Let's go and focus on this arch right here. I'm going to go ahead and trace the outline. So here's the male pubic arch. And if I switch to female here, notice how in the female skeleton it's a wider angle. So there's in yellow we have the outline of the male pubic arch. And here we can see the female pubic arch being juxtaposed against that. So the female skeleton has a larger pubic arch. This is all has to do with giving birth and getting babies out of the birth canal or the pelvic outlet. And then also as we look at this opening here, we have in the female pubic pelvic girdle, we have a pretty wide opening. And if I go back to my menu settings, need to click the mouse here. Go back to my menu settings. And I could change this back to male. Note how, see where the yellow lines are? The pubic arch is now narrower. So there's less room in position in that space. Another thing I want to highlight here as we look at our pelvic girdle is to focus on the coccyx. So here we have the tip of the coccyx in the male pelvic girdle. And in the male pelvic girdle, the coccyx tends to reflect forward. Or anteriorly. And if I go back and switch this to female, switch it to male. Switch it to female. I promise, I know the difference between the sex icons. I just don't use them very often. So here we switch it to female, and as we look at this female, the coccyx reflects posteriorly. So if we focus on the pubic arch, the angle of the coccyx, or the width of the pelvic outlet, those are the three characteristics you can use to differentiate male versus female pelvic girdles. Now as we look at the pelvic girdle, let's go ahead and zoom this out here and recenter. Let's center on this guy. So we have the pubis bone here, and I just want to highlight just the pelvic girdle. Curses. These ligaments keep coming back. So I'll go ahead and hide our femur here. I don't want to look at that femur. So here we have, and let's hide this femur too, just for the fun of it. Happy little femur. And I'm clicking. I promise I'm clicking. There we go. Hide. Hit H for hide. My computer is having a brain hiccup right now. There we go. So here we have the pelvic girdle. The pelvic girdle has two coxal bones. So as we look at the coxal bones of the pelvic girdle, That's the left-right bones. And the coxal bones themselves are made up of 3 fused bones in the adult pelvic girdle. Those 3 fused bones are the pubic or pubis bone, the ischium, and the ilium. And they're all fused together to form a coxal bone in the adult skeleton. Now, as we look at these bones, we'll start with the ilium. The ilium is the largest of the 3 components of the coxal bone, and it's going to be the most superior and the most lateral of the 3. So let's do a zoomed-in view of the ilium. So here's our highlighted view of the ilium. We're first going to focus on the iliac crest. That iliac crest is shown in purple here. It's this ridge along the top. That's the iliac crest. We also have the greater sciatic notch. That greater sciatic notch is shown here in gray. It's that big indentation. And then finally we have the sacroiliac joint. I love this name. It's a joint between the sacrum and the iliac bones. So to really show the sacroiliac joint, we need to back out of these bony landmarks. I think if I hit the back button, there we go. So the sacroiliac joint is right here. We include the SI joint or sacroiliac joint on your lab objective sheets because, well, SI pain is pretty common, particularly in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy or for individuals who are carrying extra weight in their abdomen. So that is the ilium. Our next bone is the ischium. As we look at the ischium, that is going to be commonly referred to as the butt bone. That's the bone, right down here, that you sit on. So as we look at the ischium, we have a couple landmarks that we want to focus on. First, we have the ischial tuberosity, then we'll have the ischial spine, and then the lesser sciatic notch. First, let's do the lesser sciatic notch, just because that's easier to juxtapose with the greater sciatic notch. I'm going to hide this guy in the background, just so we have a better view. So here, in yellow, we can see the greater sciatic notch, and then in green, we have the lesser sciatic notch. So there's 2 big notches. The big one is the greater, the smaller one is the lesser. And then in between those 2 big notches, we have this little prominence sticking out. Ooh, I did not want to do that. So let's go ahead and do our zoomed in view. As we look at that prominence shown here in green, that prominence is the ischial spine. And then in bright pink down here, we have the ischial tuberosity. The ischial tuberosity, like all tuberosities, is a rough, bony extension that serves as a connection point for muscles. Up next, we have the pubis. The pubis bone is going to be the most medial and anterior of the 3 bones that make up the coxal. So I'm hitting refresh here, refresh. Apparently that's not working, so we'll back it up a bit more, and we'll just go ahead and get rid of the ligaments again. So as we focus on our pubis bone, right here is our pubis bone. We have a left pubis, right pubis, and between the 2, we have the pubic symphysis, which is a chunk of fibrocartilage. And while we look at this pubis bone, there's not as many things that we want to focus on. First, we have the pubic symphysis, which is this chunk of fibrocartilage. It's technically not part of the bone, but we didn't really know where else to put it on the lab objective sheet except under pubic bone. So there it is right there. And then finally, we have the pubic arch, which I'd already talked about. That is the angle right here between the left-right pubic bones, with the pubic symphysis as the vertex, or the I don't know, what's the technical term for that? It's not the fulcrum. I'm drawing a blank right here. The pointy part of the angle is the pubic symphysis, and that's the technical term, pointy part. Promise, I passed 10th grade geometry. So that's the 3 bones separate, and then we have the encapsulated by multiple bones. So we have some bonus ones. First, we have the obturator foramen, and I'm going to need to clean this up a little bit. Here we go. We'll get rid of this guy too. And what the heck, just for the fun of it, we're Oh, snap. I did it again. Oops, I did it again. I should have stopped at upper limb. So we'll hide that. Ulna, upper limbs, hide. There we go. Nice and clean. So we have this large foramen right here, this really big opening. This is called the obturator foramen. I'm going to go ahead and circle it in yellow. This obturator foramen is the largest foramen in the human body. The foramen magnum is the largest foramen of the skull. The obturator foramen is the largest foramen of the human body. And that's encapsulated by multiple bones. And then we also have the acetabulum. The acetabulum is this large indentation right here. I'll go ahead and get rid of the labrum and the cartilage. There we go. So we can see a large indentation. I'll go ahead and use bright green to circle that. So right here we have our acetabulum. The acetabulum is notable in that this large fossa, this large, shallow, smooth indentation, is going to be where the head of the femur articulates with the pelvic girdle. So we're at the about the 11.5-minute mark. And we just finished up the pelvic girdle. So I think this is a good stopping point for the video. I know I said I was going to do the lower limb, but I'll do a separate video for the lower limb. If you have any questions or comments, class, please feel free to post them in the class discussion board or shoot me an email. And as always, happy studies.